When I started my career about 26 years ago, it was very much male-dominated, but that has changed quite a lot. I think many women are seeing their role in science and seeing that they can really make a career from it.
Women also should not ask for pity, should not be asking that because I'm a woman, give me a little bit more advantage than the other. You've got to fight your way up. It's difficult.
You tell somebody about your dream, about your desire, to pursue this field and to further your studies. And the first reaction is why? What's the point? They don't see a value in this.
Not only do you have to catch up because you're a woman, but you also have to catch up because you're black. And you come from a system that has been previously disadvantaged and that has not had the necessary resources.
Yes, we do have challenges, but that's what life is. And your inner energy is what drives you through these challenges. So if I choose to be a victim, I will be a victim.
When you think of women empowerment, people often think of, let's put women in positions just to make up the numbers, or for compliance, or, to help with diversity issues. That's not what empowerment means. For me, women empowerment means investing in women so that they have the correct skills, they enhance their own ability, and they're equipped with the right toolkit to then survive.
What you want particularly is for women not only to enter the sciences because there are good career opportunities there, but not just women and men, but to enter the sciences with passion because they love it.
There is no better time to be a female scientist in South Africa than now. There's so much support available. Everyone is rooting for young girls to succeed.
This being a Women's Month in South Africa, I am very proud and humbled that the Department of Science and Technology in particular has had this vision of recognizing those who are making it in research.
Women are making tremendous strides in the scientific field, but they really need to be encouraged to do that because it's traditionally a male-dominant field. We think it's an important evening, we think it's an important event. So we are here as a partner to support the Department of Science and Technology.
Where we were 10 years ago, the numbers of black women who were included amongst the award winners were far less than we'll see tonight. But every single award winner is based on excellence and in their achievements and in their work. But we also celebrate achievement, not only in women in science, but in general from where we were 20 years ago to where we are today. What we have is a celebration of magnificent achievement of our South African women in transforming a country from a country that was really characterized by as a seriously male-dominated society and obviously with its racial dimensions. If you were a black woman in South Africa, you were really at the bottom of the pile.
I would like to read to you a letter I wrote to myself when I was in my 50s or 50-something for when I was 18 years old. I know you think you are poor.
You have to wear second-hand clothes and often walk barefoot to school in winter when you were young. The other learners laugh at you since you are not as well off as they are. But you get top marks in mathematics and science. I just wanted to be a doctor, that's all I knew. An engineer, and then a dentist. But my father became sick. You know, we are responsible. When your parent is sick, I stopped all attempts to go overseas to do those, because I could only do them overseas because the South African system was that system. And I stopped all efforts to go overseas. So I concentrated on chemistry. I said, okay, if I can be a doctor, I'll make the medicine. That's why I'm here. You think you have what it takes to be a scientist? Let me tell you, you have what it takes. You like nature. This may have come from your shepherd days. You like to ask deep questions about your environment. In Lesotho, we had this thing called staff development. So when I was sent in Canada, the whole idea was I would come back and be a lecturer. But after masters, the university, somebody in the university decided I can't go because I'm a woman, I'll have babies and I'm a waste of money and time. But then I fought. I'm always fighting, and I'm kind of tired of fighting. I fought, and finally the government intervened, and I was able to go. Being a scientist means being in touch with your environment, having inquisitive mind, asking questions about how things work. Just going from Lesotho to the airport in Johannesburg, we were stopped by police because the car we're traveling with said National University of Lesotho. That national somehow had something against the apartheid regime. You know, they actually wanted to put me in jail because we must be radical of some sort. I've given up understanding the system, and it's no point going back to it.
I think she herself has faced challenges being a woman in science, being a black woman in science, which was particularly difficult when she started, and she just never let any of those things weigh her down. She doesn't have a victim mentality. Oh, because I'm a woman, it means I'm not as good as a man. She never let that stop her, and she just carries on and does the best that she can do.
When I first arrived, there were no women here. There were no black people here. So no one would talk to me at all. So I just looked to overseas for collaborators and people to talk to. But you don't give up because people don't support you, because you may not get that support as a woman.
She always encourages us to further and, carry on and not to give up. And yeah, just working with her has been a great experience, and she makes us stand out, I think, in the rest of the world. When you start talking about Professor Nyogonye, everyone just wants to know what you're going to talk about, because she's well known. And yeah, it's quite inspiring working with her.
I won Woman of the Year, that's Chopra Checkers thing, and the amount of media, I kept on saying, where's my life? Where did it go? But that exposure, believe it or not, helped me to attract the best students, to attract the best funding. It was a turning point. The South Africa decided to create what are called research chairs. So I no longer get paid by Rhodes. I paid directly by government. My job is to produce the best products in terms of students.
When I was in my third year, I had the opportunity to do my internship with her, like in the lab where I was supervised by a PhD student. So it kind of gave me an idea of what happens in this lab and what it's all about. And after my third year, I decided why not do my honors in this lab, and yeah.
So initially I was interested in doing some kind of degree with a major in genetics science. But then when I started in first year at Rhodes, I did a semester of cell biology, and I thought at the end, oh, I hate this, it's horrible. So I did chemistry 1 as well, because it's a prerequisite for a major in any kind of genetics related subjects. And I just thought, this is fantastic. Carried it on to second year, third year, just fell more and more in love with it as the time went on, and then here I am doing an MSc now.
I must be able to show young people in the township that you can have an idea, you can implement it, and you can get a product. Productivity and development of new ideas and new technology is not a European thing. It's not an American thing. It can be done here in Africa, and that is my job.
The main thing that we're actually focusing on is cancer therapy, and the therapy that is used, well known, is chemotherapy. But this one is more effective because with chemotherapy, it affects all other living cells in the body, but this one, it focuses on the cancer cells. So I think it has very much potential.
Medically, there is a huge benefit for nanotechnology. The major problem we still have is that we have not determined the side effects of having those small things in your body. What are the harmful effects of it? We know the beneficial, we still have to work about the harmful effects. But nanotechnology, yes, has huge applications. So there's a huge amount of money in giving us tools to work with nanotechnology, and we have seen the benefits. The problem is, again, how do we go from what we have done in research to practicality? Many of my students that you've seen come from very remote rural areas, and I like that. I want to make sure that in every remote village, there's somebody with a doctorate. So people begin to understand. Yes, they begin to understand that they can achieve, and that this is not difficult, that this can be done.
Everyone should follow their passion, and that's a life that will be fulfilled, you know, when you do what you have loved and something that you are passionate about. And I mean, personally, I didn't come from a rich, you know, happy family. You know, there are also things that will try and bring you down and discourage you, but make a way, you know, push and be persistent about what you want. If you want something, I believe that you are gonna get it.
The more diversity we have in the classroom, in the research laboratory, it's just generally better for science because different people are going to have different ideas about things. So we don't all keep thinking the same thing all the time. We'll have different ways to answer different questions.
All nurses, for example, or doctors or engineers, everybody has to do chemistry. Even biologists have to do chemistry because chemistry is everything we are. It's in our lives, in the breath, in the air. So chemistry is something you have to study to go on. But having said that, I believe that future developments are more multidisciplinary. Combining biology and chemistry and physics and so on will result in new medicines, in new technologies, in new development. So we've got to work together.
To have this recognition gives me exposure locally and also internationally. To have that on your CV, to know that you have been awarded something like this, it already gives credit to your work.
It encourages me to continue, and I hope it will inspire other women to also have a career in computer science and also in all natural science, all sciences actually.
So up till now, in the last 4 years, we've provided about 15 scholarships, almost worth R1 million. And so that's what our involvement in an area which is very close to my heart and the heart of our organization.
There's a lack of awareness in terms of what is available out there. We are having areas of scarce skills that are not being tapped into, but you still see learners who are enrolling for the traditional kind of careers when they get to varsity. Why? Not because they do not have the capacity or the potential to do these so-called scarce skills. It's because they do not even know about it. I mean, you ask a young girl in my village about nanotechnology, they'll be asking me, what is that?
When I went to university, I had absolutely no clue that there was such a thing as zoology. So then I ended up doing zoology, and that was simply because, again, I had excelled in biology at school. I got an A in matric for biology. So for me, anything that had anything to do with biology sounded like a very obvious choice. But at that time, I had absolutely no clue what careers there would be in the field. I didn't even know a single zoologist at that stage.
I was always in science expos, getting into competitions for mathematics, and I would win. I remember sometime when I was doing standard 8, I had to sit and write a similar paper with the matric students, and I did pass quite well.
And so I started looking around the country, investigating what professors were doing what at what universities. And I wrote to a number of them, and the most enthusiastic response came from the professor who would then become my mentor for 6 years. And he was based at the University of Natal.
So my mathematics teacher, by then Mr. Keston, found me a bursary that took me up to standard 10, which is now called grade 12. And thereafter, after completing matric, I went to university to do Bachelor of Science, of which I was funded by ESCOM to do that. And I moved on to honours in medical biochemistry, of which I was funded by Kenyon Collins from the UK. And I did my master's. I got a scholarship to go do my master's in Sweden, and I was funded for that to do a master's in public health.
The first zoology department that I worked in, I was the only female for a while. I was the youngest member of staff, only female and only black. And all of my colleagues were male and white, which ordinarily is not a big deal, except that the person who was closest to me in terms of age, so the person with whom I had the smallest gap in terms of age, was the same age as my father, and that was the youngest guy in the department.
I went to University of Pretoria to see the students that were funding in nuclear sciences. So the room was too full, and it was so male-dominated in a way. So before I started my conversation with them, I was like, where are women? I'm not seeing any women. I feel like we are underrepresented in this room. And one PhD candidate who's a black woman said, they are busy making babies. I'm even late myself, and I'm still sitting in here. She was just saying it jokingly, but she was saying something tangible and valuable.
Mentorship is incredibly important in this journey of becoming a scientist, in that if from a very early stage you've got somebody who's very enthusiastic about your own development and about the subject, obviously, then your chances of succeeding are improved. Animal physiology is how animals function. So we look at how this animal function influence its capacity to deal with changes in its environment. One of the main responses that animals utilize is hibernation and daily torpor, which is a milder form of hibernation. And what was exciting about that finding was that when you mention the word hibernation, everybody automatically thinks bears, and they think cold, and they think snow. And yet we're in Africa. And so we have to start asking, what are some of the environmental drivers that cause these animals to use similar responses to that which you observe in the Northern Hemisphere under very different environmental conditions? And that's been very exciting. We think that this will help us a long way in predicting how animals will respond to climate change. And so if you know what mechanisms animals have in their repertoire of functioning, you can make recommendations in terms of what species do you think are most likely to be adversely affected based on how they will be responding to those environments.
I joined the Medical Research Council in August 2005, and my then director, who was my boss at the time, Professor Angela Mathieu, managed to find me a space at the London South Bank University to do my PhD there. And I had literally everything. I mean, they supplied everything, starting from laptops, the office space, and they really prioritized my PhD. So it was a golden opportunity for me. Having gotten married in 2005, and then we agreed with my husband that no falling pregnant until I finish. But fortunately, not unfortunately, I fell pregnant when I was completing my PhD.
And yet, the reality is that if you get pregnant while you're doing your master's or your PhD, chances are you will not complete it.
Cut the long story short, I delivered the thesis, my PhD thesis, on a Friday this week. The following Friday, I gave birth to my daughter.
There's also life choices that females need to make. You know, if you're going to have a career in science, it demands a lot out of you. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of investment. It takes a lot of being away from home, obviously depending on the subject. I mean, in my specific area, your animals are out there in the bush and they're out there in the field, so you've got to be away for extended periods of time. And so if you want to throw a family into that mix, chances are it's going to take some serious maneuvering and some serious negotiating with your partner as well.
I mean, if I'm having a 2-month-old baby, do you think that I will go and enroll for a PhD? But a man can do that. Our husbands can do it. But for me, I need to raise this child until maybe he's 2 years, and then I say, okay, when this child is 2 years, I can go enroll for a PhD.
I want to be an academic, and I'm a master's student now. How do I set myself up such that 6-7 years down the line, I will land that academic position?
We are struggling with females, especially black females. I mean, we had, in the previous financial year, out of 294 grant holders that we had, we only had 13 black females, 13. I think there should be targeted programs that are built particularly to encourage women to come on board.
I think the best thing any young aspiring scientist can do is to speak to somebody who's walked the road, who's been on the journey, and to say, what can I expect on this journey? What kinds of decisions will I need to make?
This is for the distinguished women in the life sciences category. And please come up to stage, our finalists, Professor Mareka Labaskachny of the University of the Free State.
The old system was very patriarchal, especially in agriculture, where I do a lot of my work. You know, 25 years ago, it was an all white male-dominated field, and female, white or black females were frowned upon. That has really been changing, and the opportunities are there. In Africa, yeah, all crop production is done by women, and we need more scientists to become involved with agronomy, genetics, breeding, everything that has to do with food production. We need more women in that field.
I know a lot of women will shoot me for saying what I would now say, but I think it has to be said. I'm single, I've never married, and so my work's been my life. I have given more than 100% of my time to my career, to my passion, and my passion is what I do. For me, coming to work is a joy. I come because I love everything I do.
Many women, although we have kind of not had opportunities in the past to explore some of these areas, I'm not convinced that, all women come because they really want to make an impact or a change. Some people want to prove a point. Some people want to show that I can have it all, I can be it all.
And maybe because I work hard at whatever I do, I've been able to achieve. And I personally have not had any experience where being a female has been an issue.
The more women you have coming in and pushing up that glass ceiling, then it makes it possible for a whole lot more women to come in.
Coming into the field of genetics was just being at the right place at the right time. In the era of the mid-1980s, when the concepts of recombinant DNA technology was at the forefront of science, that I got involved and interested in the tools that molecular biology afforded scientists. And it was just coincidental that having completed a master's in biotechnology, that this division of human genetics at what was then called the South African Institute for Medical Research needed people with my qualifications. And that's how I've joined this department since 1987. I was now armed with a set of tools that could be applied in the field of human genetics. So I got involved with doing diagnostic work, screening for inherited disorders, tracking genes through families.
The Medical Research Council started what they called a Research Capacity Development Unit. Now, this unit was set up specifically for the purpose of taking undergraduate students, postgraduate students like myself, who were Black, who wanted to explore a lot of different areas within the sciences, but did not know which institutions to connect with. They didn't have the funding, probably didn't have any other role models, who were Black at the time, who could encourage them to pursue those fields. And I was probably one of the first beneficiaries of that capacity development program that the Medical Research Council had. And so it was almost like it was all put before me that choose which area you think, given your background in microbiology, you would like to pursue. And that's how I was introduced into bioinformatics, which I later pursued.
I'm very interested in genetics, so that is where my whole career started. And at university, I started with genetics, and then I started specializing in plants. And then I realized the rich biodiversity, especially in Africa, in terms of the plants that are available and which are edible to humans and which can be used to improve crops to add food security on the continent. I think everyone realizes that food security is of prime importance. If people don't have food to eat, then you have major problems, because that's the most basic need that people have. I think there's consensus worldwide that there is climate change. There's no way that we can get around that. And that means that we are going to have less rainfall, more droughts, and also higher temperatures. And this is going to impact hugely on agricultural production. It's absolutely crucial in all crop areas, maize, cassava, wheat, that we need to look at genetic improvement for heat and drought tolerance. There's constantly, breeders are developing new cultivars which have better nutritional value, better insect resistance, better disease resistance. And those seeds are becoming available to farmers. We work very closely with a number of companies all over Africa, and we also train students coming from there. So we have a very close collaboration. We have a whole network, I think, in Africa in terms of plant breeding.
I was inspired to look further into the history of the peoples of Africa using a molecular genetic approach. And that's kind of what I focus on currently. I'm interested in contributing towards the writing of the history of the peoples of Africa, and my narrative is the narrative of the genes. And what we found from that was that there's one branch, the oldest branch, that dates to over 100,000 years, that lead exclusively to genetic patterns found among the Khoi and the San. We examined 7 different groups of Khoi and San people from Southern Africa, and all of them were anchored on this one branch. And then on the second branch that connect to this ancestral pool, we find the rest of Africa. So several lines of evidence are converging to Southern Africa. So the big question is, could Southern Africa be that cradle, the geographic region from whence our species, Homo sapiens sapiens, have evolved? And given that so many systems converge to this geographic locale, it's very likely that it is. And that's what excites me.
I think that, there are now many societies, African bioinformatics societies, that have come up in the last couple of years, which are beginning to recognize the potential of bioinformatics and computational biology to kind of try and deal with some of the problems that have been lingering. So for an example, when I worked on a project on malaria, where we're looking at the Plasmodium genome, we were mapping out the Plasmodium genome, we were understanding where the genes are within the Plasmodium genomes, which sequences are actually responsible for disease transmission, were the genes that we could turn on and off, and when we turned it off, then it would mean that it would stop the transmission process. The Human Genome Project, when it started, they may not have seen it was just coding the human genome. To what end? But, there's a whole field of research that has come up because of that project. So it may not of itself been an end, but it has given birth to a lot of other different areas, a lot of other, solutions, potential solutions.
We now have access to an entire human genome sequence. And so now we're not just looking at little pieces of DNA, we can access people's complete DNA profile. Although the focus is to understand Africa, one can't see Africa in isolation because our modern scenario is based on contact with the rest of the world. And so we believe, and I strongly believe this, that by understanding the population dynamics, we are in a better position to understand the scaffold on which variation around the globe is anchored on.
So it may be that at a genetic level, we can all be superior in the same level. But if that is not accompanied by opportunity at a societal or environmental level, then again, societies become unequal.
I think firstly, women should see that they could make a career in science. I think more and more girls are seeing that they can basically do anything that men can do.
And I think that there's also a whole lot of organizations that are now giving scholarships just for women. There's lots of scientific organizations just for women. And it is also out of the recognition that, you know, because women have been catching up, you kind of need to give them more of an opportunity and create a platform for them to also come into those fields.
And the winner, congratulations, Professor Soraya Sidat. Well done to you.
If you look at the Women in Science, the function, for example, it was so nice to see women excelling in all areas of science. And I think it's just becoming more visible, because earlier years you also didn't see this kind of acknowledgement for women.
The next award is Established Researcher Award.
Well, I think I've had to overcome many challenges. Firstly, as a black woman, you know, black and being a woman as well. But what I've always believed is that, you know, when a door opens, there's always an opportunity to say, you know, this is a chance. What can I do? Because all of us are born with capabilities.
Please, one more round of applause to every single one of our finalists.
It's in first place a huge honor just to be a finalist. People should remember that. But to actually win, it's quite a big honor.
Engineering is critical in developing a knowledge economy purely because of the essence of what it means. So engineers are problem solvers. I think with an engineering mind, it will help us develop the technology to a level where it becomes sustainable and one of our greatest resources in the country.
The engineering field for a woman can be seen as very male-dominated, and a lot of girls are scared to go into the field because they don't want to, you know, be in an industry where they won't be accepted.
I really believe that the shortage of women engineers, largely, especially at a young level, lies around the misconceptions there are about engineering. I mean, how many young girls do you know today saying, yay, I want to be an engineer? It doesn't happen very often, and I think it's largely because they think to be an engineer, you know, you have to be a grease monkey in your hard hat and overall the whole day.
I actually, before I started at SANSA, spent 5 years working in the mining industry. And you don't get more manly than the mining industry.
So part of the requirement of your undergrad degree at UCT is to perform at least 6 to 8 weeks of practical training on an industrial site. Being a Sasol purser, I did that in Secunda. So it was my very first visit to this massive industrial plant, and it was my first step into the real world of engineering, so to speak.
But then what I found is just do my job, be nice, be professional. And, you know, they tend to pick up on that and take it from there. And then, you know, if you need to prove yourself, then prove yourself. You know, everybody goes through life having to prove themselves in one way or another.
Sometimes I was the youngest in the room, the only person of color, only female, and you have all these things coming at you, and how do you make yourself comfortable in that situation and still be confident in what you do?
2005, I saw the job advertised for a target maker, and I was like, what is this? Because I never worked in nuclear industry before. I took a chance and I was lucky to get the job. You don't study to make targets, but I got training from overseas, as the skill is not available yet here in South Africa to make such materials for nuclear physics research. We've got the accelerator group here where they produce the beam of particles. And then the target, this is where I come in, it's the material that they bombard with the beam of particles. The nuclear physicists, they come after to analyze what comes after they bombarded the stable nuclide, which is the target, with the beam of particles. And then they'll study whatever comes out.
My role in this at SANSA is I'm a space weather engineer. I'm part of the overwintering team that goes to Antarctica every year. South Africa's got a big role in the South African National Antarctic Program, where we run the science in terms of the space weather component of that. But the application of this is to do with learning about the space weather, which is basically the space between the Earth and the Sun. And thereby creating a model of what happens on the Earth, how does the Earth respond to these situations, so that in future, when we do have something happening, we are smarter in knowing how to design our satellites, how to design our systems, how to design your electrical grids, you know, in response to what the sun is doing. South Africa has a base in Antarctica as part of the South African National Antarctic Program. And from this base, every year we have 10 overwintering members that stay there for the year and look after the infrastructure there, and then specifically to look after the instruments there that is part of different science. We have the Superdome there, but we have lots of other science as well. So my role as engineer there would be to look after the instruments there. If an antenna blows over, we go pick it up, fix it. If a line goes dead, we fix it. We fix the computers. We keep it going.
I've been very fortunate to have some great opportunities in my life, but they only count for something if I can be able to give back to my community, to society, to my country. And a large part of which I do that is through South African Women in Engineering, a non-profit organization that was founded to just do that, promote engineering to young girls, foster innovation, and simply celebrate women in engineering. As people started seeing just how successful this concept was, what positive responses we got at our events, and companies started looking at, wait a minute, when women do start coming to the engineering field, things change. Things happen in a different way. They do add value in a way that maybe they didn't know they actually needed or wanted. That's when we started getting companies coming to us and say, oh my gosh, I love what you're doing. How can we be a part of it?
And I think women tend to be more collaborative by nature. So I think in that way, we bring that element that you need in a knowledge-based environment.
So knowing that we face a skills shortage, when you exclude 51% of your population from the talent pool on which you're going to use to solve this, that's not very smart.
While I was doing this job, I realized that I need to grow myself because it involves a lot of research. There are things that I need to understand more in regards with physics because it falls between physics and chemistry. It's material sciences, actually. And then I did physics for my master's degree.
I'm going to be spending the year in Antarctica, and after that, the question is, what then? My honest idea of where I want to be going is into renewable resources. I think South Africa can't be dependent on coal mining for, forever. And I think that is a growing field, and it's going to be massive in South Africa.
The attitude needs to change towards women and women scientists, that women scientists can be mothers, they can be wives, and they can still be good scientists. They can do it, or women have proven themselves, I think.
It what we are seeing and celebrating is women grabbing that opportunity, running with it, and really producing wonderful results.
We're all very insecure. We have these insecurities. For whatever reason, we harbor them. And the sooner we dispel of that gorilla and do things passionately, it becomes so much easier. And that's what I have found in my career, is that if I take on these challenges and I work through it, I will get there.
My next lifetime is about taking science into the people, creating things that are useful for the general public, made here in South Africa.
Women bring something very different to the table. And I think that combination of men and women working collaboratively in the engineering space to tackle these deep-seated issues that we have with the growth in Africa, I think that can lead to fantastic solutions.